Dylan.
Dylan. Hi, Dylan.
Most of y'all know me. You don't have to. For those that like write stuff down during the mission stuff, I'm not gonna like give a lot of stuff for that. I only have like maybe 4 verses. Most of my stuff's just a story of me and how I got here.
Testimony.
Well, I picked that song "Even If" for a singing night because I wanted to bring it in right before what I say, because that song, like, give me a second. Whew, okay, all right, we're good. That song just encompasses like everything that I've done to get to where I am today. A year ago today, you could have told me that I would have been here, and I would have laughed at you. Right? Life has not been easy. About a week ago, I was talking to my grandmother because I hadn't seen her in a while, so she came to see me while I was at work, and I told her that I was going to be speaking at church, and she did. She broke down into tears because she said she's been praying for me every day since I was about 8-ish years old when my mom passed away, and she didn't know how my life would play out after that, because my mom was about the only person I had in my life that would take me anywhere, church, any of that. So before she died, I would go to church with her every Sunday. My dad would come too every once in a while. I would go with my grandparents sometimes, my dad's parents, and sometimes on the weekends I stay with my grandparents and I go to church with them. But afterward, me and my dad never really went to church anymore. I would go occasionally with his parents. They're my neighbors, so sometimes they would come pick me up, or they'd wake me up and I'd go to church with them. And then occasionally I'd go with my grandparents. They live in Wisconsin, so I can't go with them every Sunday, but I would go with them. And I never really enjoyed going. It always felt like a hassle. Like, it always felt like something I had to do. And one thing that I didn't really understand, like, why stuff happened the way it did. When your mom dies at 8 years old, you get taught real quick about how everything doesn't last and death is inevitable and what death is. And a verse I wish I would have known then, which, believe it or not, I did not know this verse existed until about last year. Jeremiah 29:11, which all of you know, most of you know. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And if my 8-year-old self would have known that, things would have been a lot easier. But of course, I did not. But I mean, I was still going to church. I started going to church pretty regular about a year after with my dad's parents. And I ended up wanting to get baptized when I was about 10-ish years old. So I got baptized. I didn't really know what it meant. I just wanted to do it because my cousin was doing it. So I was like, I want to do that. So I did. I didn't really feel any different about it before or after. I just felt like something I did just to say I did it. But after that, a few years after that, I didn't want to go to church much. Like, I would go with my mom's parents every once in a while, but and whenever I stayed with them for the weekend and stuff. But I was never in church, which in turn led me to have a lot of doubts about everything. I questioned where we came from, what's our purpose, common stuff, right? Okay. Again, a verse I didn't know until like last year. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Calling on this then will make things a lot easier. But trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. I did not do any of that. I don't know what I was living for. I was just living to live. I don't really know how to explain it, but I didn't do much at all. But I'd still go to church, and I'd say I was a Christian. I'd go to church, but like I definitely wasn't living it. I didn't really understand what it meant. Another thing my grandmother was talking to me about last week, she was saying how she prayed all the time that I would get involved in a church and involved in a youth group, or that I would make a friend and a friend would drag me to church and I would get involved. Well, that's what happened. I met a girl named Courtney. She dragged me to church.
Amen.
I started attending regularly with her, but I still wasn't living the life. I was getting exposed to it, but I still didn't really understand what it meant. And I was living in sin during this entire time. You name it. I mean, I was a good kid. I wasn't a partier. I never been a partier. None of that type of stuff. But there's just things that I shouldn't have been doing, and then things that I should have been doing. And that's a message for a different day. But she said she had prayed, my grandmother said she had prayed for somebody to come in my life and do that. And she said she was so thankful that Courtney actually came around. And that's what started, that was the beginning to get me here. And the problem was, though, with me in sin, I was dragging her into it with me, unknowingly and knowingly, but it didn't feel wrong at the time. And this went by for 3.5 years. And life was easy. Like, I felt like I was on the king of the world. I was the king of the world, top of the world. I had no major problems. School was easy. And life was easy because, you know, they say if you're not working against the devil, he's not going to work against you. So life was easy. And like I said, that went by for 3.5 years. And we've been attending First Baptist regularly. And then one day, a man by the name of Adam DMs Courtney. Not me, it was Courtney. And was messaging her about once a week, telling her to come to church. And she was...
As father of children.
But she was asking me, what do I do? Like, do I respond? Like, how do I handle this? And it went by for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I was like, well, just tell them you go to First Baptist, and you're sorry, but thanks. Like, so she did, and then Carson started getting Courtney to come, and then Courtney did end up coming. And that shocked the crap out of Adam, because he was like, hey, wasn't that girl that told me to go away? But anyway, a couple weeks after that, I got dragged into coming too, which at the same time, around that time I realized the life I was living was not the life that I needed to be living. So a part of me wanted to go to church as much as I needed to. And first day, I'll never forget the first day I showed up at VUBC, because Justin had left the gas on, and we had
That wasn't me. Oh no.
well, Justin had foreshadowed burning the church down.
You said
Wednesday before you said you were going to set the place on fire.
That set the place on fire. Not
Yeah, well.
But anyway, we had to have church outside because of it. And a verse that I had said was like my verse at the time, and like I had it in my Instagram bio, and of course I wasn't really living like the verse really means to live, but I felt like I was because I wasn't partying or doing any stupid stuff. But it was Galatians 6:9, and Galatians 6:9 is I haven't memorized it. It's let us not become weary in doing good, for at a proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So I thought that was a good verse for me at the time because I was a good kid. I didn't do anything dumb. So of course, like what I thought. But as Adam was talking that night, first time I ever met him, he brought up that verse, and I was just like, "Hey, that's that verse." And so we had a little connection on that. And then later that night, he ended up finding my social media and seeing that I had it in my bio, and he was like, "Hey, that's that verse." And I was like, "That's what I said." But that was my first like talk with Adam, and he was the first person I ever had like try with me so hard to get to church, or like and invite me to come back and be so joyful and happy to see me. About a week later, I think it was like my second or third time there, we were talking about the new Spider-Man movie that was coming out, and Adam looks at me and says, "You want to go?" And I was like, "Just me and you?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah." So the grown man I'd known for about a week and a half, I went to the movies with him. No, it was me and him. We were about to jump in the bushes. But I ended up telling him the gist of this story that night, and like about me and how what I came through and stuff, and about my mom and just the little stuff. And we had our first little connection there, and he was just like, he said he had me all wrong too. He thought I was a little a preppy boy.
I see that.
He did. But the main reason I kept going to BEBC was because I had never felt the Holy Spirit like I did there. And I still feel it almost every time we worship. I never experienced worship like I had until that night. And I just sometimes I'll just get goosebumps, and I know when it's the Holy Spirit. When we started singing Even If, I felt it. I just got goosebumps all over. But a couple weeks later, might have been about a month later, Student Week happened. And that was the first time I had gone to a church camp when I was like 12. I didn't really experience much there. I just felt like, why are we sitting in pews for 3.5 hours? Obviously, I was just exhausted. But anyway, I just wanted to go swim in the lake. But during that week, I can't remember who was preaching, which day it was, but I want to say it was when Charlie was preaching. And afterward, it broke me down. I don't remember the message. I don't remember what caused it, but I knew then and there that like I needed to fully commit and stop living the life that I was living and start living in this, because I had been playing it all along. And that night after that was the first time I had prayed at night before I went to bed in years, probably since I was 7 or 8 years old, because I would pray with my mom every night before I went to bed. And that was, I haven't prayed every night since then, but I've prayed like constantly since then. And that was the first time. That was one big milestone for me because I'm horrible at prayer. If you ever hear me praying out loud, which I will later when I finish, but I'm awful at it. I get lost for words.
He knows
My tongue gets
he
stuck in
knows
my
your
throat.
heart. He knows what you
Anyway.
want to say.
But that's something I've been working on is prayer. And
There's no such thing as being terrible at prayer.
That's right.
Yeah, tell them.
after student week, I felt alive and stuff. Like I was feeling good. And then school rolls around, and I start getting back into classes. I'm getting stressed out, and Cal 2 and all that fun stuff. And long story short, I'm taking that class again.
Not to get too, don't feel bad.
But I was stressing, and I was turning to other things instead of this to chill. Like a big thing that's always been my thing growing up, single or an only child, and just me and my dad. I got into video games at a young age, and I played a ton of video games. That was mostly my escape all the way growing up. But it gets to a point where that's not this, of course. But that was where I went my own world and did my thing. Anyway. I had a very tough dry spell from about late October till about up to strength and stand. I wasn't reading this like I should. I stopped praying at night. I just wasn't feeling it anymore. And I just kept telling myself, well, I'll just wait around for STS, then everything will get better. I'll get back into it. And I just kept delaying that for weeks, all the way up until STS. And when STS rolled around, the first night was okay. I can't remember who spoke. TJ Gilliam, wasn't it? Yeah. I didn't get much from him. I wasn't paying attention. Should have been. I didn't write much down like we should have. But the next morning, that was Tadashi, wasn't it? Yes. Tadashi, he woke me up a little bit. I started listening a little bit to him, but it was early morning. We didn't get much sleep. I still wasn't feeling it like I should have. But then that night, Ed Newton was preaching, and he brought the house down.
I just said that.
But I didn't get it when he was out there the first time. We started praise after he was done, and he stopped the praise band, goes back on stage, and says, none of y'all are doing what y'all are supposed to be doing. Y'all are just faking it. And he basically says, if you don't know if you're going to heaven or hell, raise your hand. And I froze up. And my first thought, when you don't know one or the other, which one do you think it is? So I put my hand up. And for those who don't know, at those conferences, they tell you to go back behind the curtain so you can fill out this pamphlet and talk to some people, and they'll welcome you to the Christian family or whatever. So he told everybody that had raised their hand to go back behind the curtain, and I want to say half the crowd went, but that's probably an exaggeration. But it felt like half of us went. Anyway, first person I saw, of course, was Lindsay's big old smile, and I was already terrified walking back there in the first place. But she made it a lot easier because first thing I see is just. So that lightened the mood a little bit, and then I was told to go talk to this man, and this man's name was Terry Downs, and he told me he had never done this before, just like I had. He said, "You're the first person I've ever talked to," and he looked about as broken up as I did because he didn't know what to do, and I definitely didn't know what to do. But he just, he asked me what made me come back there. And I told him, when he said heaven or hell, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. I knew that my doubts were creeping back in, and I didn't know where to place myself. So he looked at me and he just broke down in tears. And he said, you're 20 years old, or I was 19, you're 19 years old, and where you are right now is a lot better where I was when I was 19. I think he was maybe in his mid-50s, 60s. He said about 5 years ago, he was an alcoholic, a drug dealer, a drug doer, you name it, he was doing it. Until one day, he got in an accident and a log fell on top of his head, put him in a coma. And he thought it was over. And he ended up living through it. And then his wife, after he lived through it, was like, well, what do we do now? And he said, I'm getting my butt into church. Because it was by no other way that he survived what he survived. And I'm paraphrasing the accident. I'm sure it was a lot worse than what he told me. But he said, he said, I was blessed to be where I am now, because if he would have known what I knew now, he would have never been living the life that he was living. And he gave me his name, his church, his email, his phone number. He gave me everything that he had, and he told me if I ever need to talk about anything at all, that I could pull up at his house, I could pull up at his church, anything. But he was a cool dude. Anyway. But he broke me down. Well, I was already broken down in tears, but he broke me down even more. And that brings me back to the true meaning of Galatians 6:9. It's not just doing good, like, oh, I'm not doing bad stuff. It's doing good is you're actually doing good stuff. And after that is about when I learned, okay, not only do I have to be good, but I have to do good. So, and a song that I've been listening to a lot, well, probably since the album came out, but KB's last album, what was it called?
Oh, David Rebel.
Yeah, Today We Rebel. He has a song called Sing to You, and it encompasses this whole plan that I want to talk about. It's just God's plan and how we don't know anything about where we're coming from or where we're going, or only He knows anything. He knows it all, and we just have to sit back and question why. Well, we shouldn't question why. That's what I was doing, and that's what we shouldn't be doing. And yes, the chorus of the song is, when sorrow's falling down like rain, when I can hardly take the pain, I will lift up my voice to you. When I don't understand it all, when all my strength has finally stopped, I will lift up my voice and I will sing you. And I listened to that song on repeat for a long time, because it was about around the same time my great grandmother was put in the hospital this last fall, and just life was coming back to me, and I was having the same thoughts that I had when my mom passed, and just how life, like, you never know what could happen. You're here today, gone tomorrow. And I put this song on repeat for about a week. The whole time she was in the hospital, and this song. And it's powerful. The last verse of the song, he says, all night I couldn't sleep, thinking about all the joy that I couldn't keep. All these holes in my heart, it just seems that I've been pierced more times than I can speak. Got another hole from a friend last week. Lord, Lord, why so many holes in me? Then I saw the hands that were holding me, and he said, I know you. Son, I've got holes too. So, no matter, basically what it's saying, no matter what you're going through, there's a man that was put on a cross that has hands through this hand, and those feet that's been through worse. So if he could go through that, then no matter what little thing that's bothering you or difference you have with a person or you name it, struggling in school, any of it, he has dealt with worse and will help you through worse. And also goes back to even if he talks, I don't have the lyrics pulled up anymore. I wanted to sing even if because even if it doesn't go the way we want it to, we're praying for something to happen, praying, and it goes complete opposite, we should still rejoice in the fact that God's even there. Like, it could always be worse. So of course, I know you're able and I know you can say, like I said before, I'm terrible at praying. I've not been able to read for longer than a couple weeks at a time since forever. I'm terrible at keeping a schedule of reading. I don't have a set time. That's something else I need to work on. But
Read before you go to work.
I could do that. Sometimes I don't have time
Yeah.
because I'll get out of class at
Before you
like
go to work.
I'll get out of class at 3:15 and I'll have to be at work at 4. So that's like that shit.
Watch how your day is when she dives into that word in the morning.
I have to get up a little early.
And
That's another thing that's tough to do. That's why I was late to church today. But even though we all have our problems that we're dealing with, like every person in this room has something else that they're going through that they probably don't want to share with anybody else in here. Like there's stuff that I haven't even shared with everybody, but I'm trying my best here. But that's what all this is about though, because church isn't for perfect people. It's for the broken vessels who come together and worship. For the man who gave his life for those broken vessels. And that's something I have to tell myself all the time. That it's not about me. And that was my big thing about this message. Is that I didn't want to come up here and y'all to picture me and be like, ooh, Dylan, here, Dylan. That's you! Because I didn't want this to be, even though I'm speaking about me, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted to show how it has affected me. And the big thing is we only get like one life, right? And it's a cliche, we hear it all the time. But God is the only person that knows when it's going to end and where it's going to end. And that takes you back to Galatians 6:9. I'm trying to remember it. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. At any time, we could stop not doing good, and He'll strike us down, and we won't be able to defend ourselves. But like, oh, last week I was doing good, but yesterday I forgot. And you can't justify that. You have to do it all day, every day, and that is definitely tough to do. I can speak firsthand on that. All of us could. To reiterate that, Adam said this once, but that's something that stuck out to me since then. And that's about all I have.